Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, and this is live stream 1292. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news. And every once in a while, we take looks at stuff. Well, we used to. We used to do live first looks, but we're changing the format a little bit. We started this last week, just going back to the news only. Well, I guess it's news and opinion, because every episode we've kind of tackled a topic also. So there is that. But anyway, just hanging out, having fun. We are certainly not invested in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. That is for sure. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for our latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. Although it's my understanding tonight, YouTube is having problems with chat. Now, I do notice a few people have popped up, but I did see just before I started the stream that I guess YouTube is having major issues with chat messages tonight. So we will see if that affects the folks watching at home live. Anyway, like I said, because this is a live show, there is chat available. You must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. So please keep that in mind. But if you check that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best. First out the gate tonight is Keithulu. I see we've got Semper Buffo with us, Spelling Mistake, Pete Strakulich, and Daryl Arrett are all hanging with the gang so far tonight. And we might have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D lurking in the shadows as our chat moderator. We'll find out. We'll find out. So Semper Buffo says, looks like chat's okay for this stream. I don't know if it's depending on the stream or it might be depending on where the person who's watching is located. Because I know they've had problems with that kind of stuff before with like a lot of people getting, buffering issues and stuff like that when watching live streams. Don't know. Kathy Evans is also chiming in with us tonight. Very cool. So after tonight's news, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think some of the non-dungeon tubers are getting absolutely shellacked here on YouTube recently. And I don't think it's all got to do with YouTube. Yeah, how about that? We're going to do, and the funny thing is, it's not necessarily the non-dungeon tubers either. So we will discuss, but that will be after the news. And yes, lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is with us tonight. Semper Buffo says they were in other streams and they had lots of issues. Cthulhu says, in Mordor where the shadows lie. Come back. To Mordor will take you. That is, I would think that's a deep cut. See if anyone knows what that was from. I would think, well, I don't know if we got enough people in chat yet. We're going to jump on that. We shall see. All right, let's jump on into the news because next month is going to see the beginning of the Hellfire Crisis for the Pathfinder role-playing game from Paizo Inc. And things will kick off with Hellbreakers. As the Hellfire Crisis dawns and spreads its turmoil through Aveston, the nation of Ysgir is being shaken up by the rebel organization, the Hellbreakers League, which seeks to break Ysgir free of its oppressor and patron nation of infernal Cheliacs. Player characters will carry out daring missions against Cheliacs' strongholds, face off with the deadly Hell Knights, and strike out against the forces of Hell itself. On the way, they'll run into dangerous enemies, both new and old, and uncover long-lost secrets, powerful and ancient. Can the player characters stoke the fires of revolution and throw off the diabolic chains of Cheliacs, or will they be ground beneath the boot of oppression? Join the Hellbreakers and do your part. Hellbreakers is a 256-page hardcover adventure path designed for 4 characters starting at first level and rising through the ranks to reach 10th level at the campaign's exciting conclusion. Hellbreakers also includes a gazetteer of the lands and people that make up the nation of Ysgir, and a look into the cults of Urgathoa, as well as useful new items, exciting character options, and a host of dangerous monsters. The hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $79.99 when it lands in stores on March 4th. So we will see if and when this month's Paizo releases arrive. I will be sharing the Paizo preview if it does. Ever since they changed the store, I never know what's coming. Never have an idea. Yes. Cthulhu asks, non-dungeon tubers as in non-D&D game tubers or tubers who don't cover RPGs at all? People whose channels are not devoted to Dungeons and Dragons. Because as much as many of those creators have been whining about how their view numbers are down, they're really not that far down. We are talking about outlets like mine, where we cover a bunch of different role-playing games, board games, and so forth. Although now we skew very heavily into role-playing games. I did receive a package of GMT stuff today, so we will be taking a peek into that in the not too distant future. But no, I am talking about people who cover role-playing games, just maybe not necessarily devoting their outlets to Dungeons and Dragons. Moonrise Long, following a successful backer kit run, Two Little Mice has released the first of 2 new adventure supplements for the Adventures in the Household role-playing game. Here's what I know about Journey to the Garden. The Garden. Some call it the Outhold or Endless Green. Some see it as a harsh, inhospitable land, and some call it the last bastions of freedom. Some strive to conquer it, poor souls. The truth is, nothing out there is like it, as it is on the inside. It is all immeasurably vast. Too vast, maybe. And yet, if you know where to look, you can find even yourself. How am I so sure about this? Simple enough. I've seen it. Journey to the Garden is a great expansion for the Adventures in the Household 5e role-playing game. It picks up the story not long after the events described in the core rulebook. For a start, Journey to the Garden expands the world of the game, opening the doors to the garden and introducing new little folk as well as other creatures of all shapes and sizes. Thanks to this expansion, you'll be able to visit the fountain where the legendary Battle of Quill Waters was fought, Brambletown, where the boggarts found refuge during their time in exile, and even the stump of the Dindardanos tree and the distant shogunate of the Silver Blade in the backyard. On top of that, Journey to the Garden will continue exploring the history of the household after the sudden dissolution of the fragile peace. This will allow you to play through 2 brand new chapters full of historical events and shocking revelations that take your characters to even higher levels. And if this is still not enough for you, Journey to the Garden also introduces new mechanics tied to the changing seasons, new colossal opponents that are completely out of scale for littlings, and much more. Inside the book, you'll find everything you need to know on the front yard and the backyard, 2 new chapters that continue the household history, 4 new folk of the garden, 1 new profession, the wayfarer, 6 new vocations for every profession, 17 new contracts, rules for seasons and extreme weather, rules for managing travel, and those new colossal opponents. The 328-page PDF is available right now over at DriveThruRPG for $25. The hardcover is not out yet. I think, I might be wrong, but I think this is still, the physical book is still May, June, somewhere around there. But as I had mentioned last night, Two Little Mice and Free League Publishing have tons of stuff going on. We have lots of news from Two Little Mice as well as Free League Publishing, although we don't have any Free League Publishing news this evening. But I got to say, household and adventures in the household look kind of cool. They look pretty sweet. Don't really know much about them outside of you're playing, little folk. And when I say little folk, I mean, inches tall folk. So it'd be pretty cool. I know it's done very, very well as far as crowdfunding projects have gone. All right. On with the next news piece. Well, you know what? Before we do that, let's see who's popped into chat. All right. W Forge is with us, as is Higzilla and Mark Hawkswell. So welcome to you all. Mongoose Publishing has released the Traveler Vehicle Handbook Update 2026. Say that 5 times fast. And here's what I know. The universes of Traveler are filled with vehicles. Everything from sailing ships to massive trucks to G carriers to luxurious flying homes from home. The Vehicle Handbook Update 2026 lets you build them all. Submarines, drilling moles, rocket planes, grav tanks, and so much more. The book provides an updated design process for everything from the most basic dirt bike to advanced biotech monstrosities. It introduces new rules for vehicle movement, collisions, and combat to add excitement to chase scenes and terrifying battlefields. Modifications have been included, so you can now repair and customize your vehicles, while weapons from catapults to starship-grade barbettes level the playing field and allow people, vehicles, and starships to do battle with one another, while examples walk you through all of the new rules. Vehicle Handbook Update 2026 also comes complete with a catalog of vehicles, including revised versions of the stalwarts of Traveler, including the ATV, the Air Raft, Speeder, and G Carrier. The 192-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to just score the PDF alone, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Well, how about that? I've had people ask me if I think we'll see another edition of Traveler from Mongoose anytime soon. And my answer to that is essentially, we keep getting these different updates. So we have had the core rulebook update. We've had the High Guard update. We've had the equipment catalog update. And now we've got the vehicle handbook update. So no, I don't think we're going to see a Mongoose Traveler 3E anytime soon. Now, that doesn't mean we're never going to see that. I just don't foresee that happening in the next couple of years or so. So there is that. Pretty sweet. I like Traveler. I think everybody knows I really dig Traveler. I go way back with Traveler, although unfortunately I didn't have an opportunity to really play much. I was able to buy a lot of the little black books. In fact, most of them from GDW back in the day, but didn't really get an opportunity to play much or even run it much. I know there are a few of you out there in chat who are fans of Traveler as well. W. Forge says, hey, Pete Strackledge, hope you can see this comment. There was previous problems with comments not posting or being blocked or erased in other live streams. Well, I saw it. So there is that. So I am seeing some comments. I'm not seeing a ton of comments. So there you go. Higzilla says they enjoy Traveler very much. Very nice. On our next news piece, Blades 68, a standalone Blades in the Dark role-playing game, is about to enter its final 2 weeks of crowdfunding, and I've got the lowdown from Evil Hat Productions. Unity War 3 is over. The age of electroplasmic fusion is here. The future is now. Prepare to enter the blue time. Blade 68 spins the timeline of Blades in the Dark forward 100 years and launches you into the radical, swinging 60s. New playbooks, revolutionary crews, fresh factions, and daring heists await you on the vibrant streets of Duskball in this official 450-page expansion from the subversive mind of Tim Denay, author of Deathmatch Island. It's time to get groovy. It's time to get dangerous. It's time to get weird with Blades 68. Oh, yeah, baby. No, that was me. It's not part of the sell sheet. In Blade 68, you'll take on the roles of radicals, swingers, intellectuals, and paranormalists. It's kind of a wild mix. Yeah, I'm a slinger, baby. Yeah. You'll join forces with hard-bitten fixers, ex-military veterans, shadowy operatives, and outcast souls sealed inside a robot body. Put those player characters together into new crews like the revolutionary militants, thrill-seeking racers, or the mysterious esoteric cult of the utopians. In Blade 68, designer Tim Denay brings the same subversive dystopian sensibility he explored in Deathmatch Island to the strange and deeply corrupt setting of Blades in the Dark. After two major wars and key technological discoveries, electroplasmic fusion has dramatically reshaped the city of Duskball. In the swinging 60s, there's a plasmovision in every home, an autopod in every driveway, and the BLUE array overhead keeps these supernatural horrors of the Deathlands at bay. Mostly. For average citizens, it's an age of science, conformity, and consumerism. But you're no average citizen. You know the streets, and you're not afraid of danger. Your moment is now. There is a short, approximately 2-minute backer kit video. So let's take a peek. The backer kit for Blade 68. Whoops. Hey, how do we get to that news piece? Hold on there a minute, Bob Louie. There we go. Get ahead of ourselves there. Anywho, the backer kit for Blade 68 has passed the $350,000 funding mark. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF for a $45 pledge. You want to grab just the PDF as well as a print-on-demand coupon, you can do so for a $25 pledge through March 12th. Expected fulfillment is this August. I'm sort of curious if this is standalone or if you need to have Blades in the Dark. Now, there is I want to say there's a pledge level to get Blades in the Dark for this backer kit project, but I'm not positive that you need to have Blades in the Dark in order to use this, because they are saying that this is a supplement, but a lot of times when we have Blades in the Dark releases, I guess they're considered forged in the dark. A lot of times they're standalone products. So I don't know. I guess I'm leaning towards this probably a supplement that you do need to have Blades in the Dark in order to utilize it. But yeah, pretty wild stuff. I do notice some comments in here saying, oh, Austin Powers role-playing game. I'm just throwing in little Austin Powers things. I don't really think that's the vibe they're going for here. I think this is kind of gonzo science fiction as far as the kind of setting that they're going for. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Walona's Cave and Ken 418 have joined us. I believe it might be a first-time visit in chat for Ken, so welcome aboard. Just don't recognize the nickname there. So there is that. All right. And our final news piece, the Tower of the Mad Mage Mazdor is available in print and PDF from Hydra Hobbies. And there we go. What the hell's going on with this silly thing today? I'm going to take this out back. I'm going to take OBS out back and slap it around a little bit. Anyway, here's the skinny from Hydra Hobbies. The legend of the Mad Mage Mazdor has all but been forgotten. But when you hear a bard's strange song about a forgotten tower owned by a certain mad mage filled with magical treasure, you discover that this old legend may actually be true. The journey to the tower takes you through the wilderness, across a toll bridge, and through an infested forest. Once you arrive at the tower, can you figure out a way past the magically locked entrance? What foul creatures are locked inside? Whatever became of the Mad Mage? What of the wondrous treasures promised by that crazy song? What will you discover in the Tower of the Mad Mage Mazdor? The 25-page adventure is available in print for $9.99. If you want to grab just the PDF, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $7.99. And W4 just pointing out, Blade 68 is an expansion. You do need Blades in the Dark to play. Sweet. Thank you very kindly for pointing that out. I'm going to have to change my news piece that I shared because I was under the impression it was standalone. Oh! So I'll have to change that later tonight after the show. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Why is this all bouncing around weird? All right, gonna have to get into that there. Say, well, a little bonus peek there at Blade 68. Like, yikes. What's going on? And, it's funny. It's like tonight, it wasn't like, racing around last minute to get everything done. So like, yeah, I can just slide on in. Everything's all set up. Hey, speaking of the Tower of the Mad Mage. Yes, this is for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Of course, also means you could port it over to just about any OSR retro clone fairly easily as well. So we've got this. So I'll be sharing some coverage of this. I'll share a review in the not too distant future. So big thank you to Hydra Hobbies for sending along that review copy. Anyway, as I mentioned, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of those One Bookshelf sites, stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I'll get 5% of that sale. And you'd be amazed. All those little bitty commissions add up and help keep the gaminggang.com website around. So there is that. Of course, if you like the video, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. If you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a couple of other ways you can support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. And you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda if you'd like. My, that's tasty. You can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links to that in the show notes. Also down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. Absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. I also like to give a shout out to our Patreon members during the live show. So big tip of the cap to Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzek, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavallo, Matt Weiss, Kevin King, GameCat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Pete Strakulich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, and the Madman. Very cool. Thank you very, very much. And speaking of Kevin R. Smith, he's just popped on into chat. Danny Gable is also with us. Danny points out they love them some DCC. And Pete Strakulich also points out Dungeon Crawl Classics rocks. Doesn't kick rocks, it rocks. I like DCC. I like Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why I think some of the non-D&D YouTubers who cover role-playing games. Now, I'm not talking about Seth. Seth Skorkowski, he's got his own. He's established now. Yeah, so YouTube gets his videos out there, of no doubt. And whenever he shares a video of somebody's product, normally those get shared from those publishers on their social media accounts. But I'm talking about a lot of other folks out there who are kind of getting clobbered by YouTube lately. And I got a few ideas about what's going on. Not all of them have to do with YouTube or even the outlets themselves. There are kind of some outside influences going on. But we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But I wanted to mention, I got a comment today. A lot of times I get oddball comments and just ignore them. Sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, whatever. I'll hide the user from the channel, right? So somebody had commented about, it was a Delta Green. I think it's a review I did for Delta Green. I know it's Delta Green. I forget which exact release it was. So this person, first they said, oh, need to know is free in PDF. Okay, I understand that. They also said, I think the slipcase set for Delta Green was on sale. Okay, that's cool. So then they're like, you use too many words. It's like, you use way too many words. So then they start going into how I said that whatever the release was, the MSRP is $49.99. And they said, you should just say $50. Think of how many syllables you had to use. I'm like, what? Is this a joke? No, it wasn't. It wasn't a joke. It was one of those sorts of gamers. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Vern? And they went on and on and on in this comment. And I'm thinking, you're telling me I use too many words. And then you go on and write a couple of paragraphs. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you're telling me don't say $49.99, or like I like to say, $49.99. Just say $50. Well, here's the thing. The MSRP isn't $50. It's $49.99. And there's a reason why it's $49.99 and not $50. So for one, I like to tell you what the price is. I don't tell you, oh, well, yeah, you can go score this PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for around $30. I don't know, maybe. I deal in facts. So the number one, the first fact is $49.99 is not $50. I get it. It's a penny less, but there is a reason why things are priced at 99 cents. $20. And well, if it was $20.99, that'd be silly. It'd go $19.99. Here in the United States, you go get gas. It's $2.97 and 9/10 of a cent. That's for taxation, but still. Anyway, but I was like, really? I mean, this is a problem. They're like, oh, I think they were like, oh, it's 2.5 minutes. They left 3 comments on this video. It's like, oh, it's 2.5 minutes into the video and you haven't even started the review. Well, then you know what? Your time is so fucking valuable. Go off and spend it somewhere else. It's like, what's wrong with these fucking people? Peace Racklet said they paid $6 a gallon the other day. Gas around me is, I think I got gas last week. I haven't really had to get gas again. I think it's around $2.80 a gallon for, just regular unleaded. But yeah, I was like, you're going to sit there and worry about how many syllables I used? Like I said, there are people in this hobby who chase other people out of the hobby because of their lunacy. Sarah D says they're pursuing a doctorate in media and writing their thesis on your channel, Jeff. You should feel honored. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But I will tell you one thing. Me saying $49.99 is not chasing anyone else away from the videos. Just this person. It's like, okay, well, knock yourself out. Enjoy Delta Green. It's a great role-playing game, but you don't need to be hanging around this outlet anymore. So, anywho. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the content creators out there feeling like they're getting crushed lately. I know. What can you do? I'll be very honest, and we'll talk about this too. To me, myself personally, I'm feeling it's starting to get tough too. We'll talk about it. Anyway, but first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat. Yum, yum. It's a meal in itself. Our all-meat super dog. Enjoy one now.
Wouldn't a good hot cup of whipped hot chocolate taste great right now? Carnation's Cocoa Supreme, the delicious hot chocolate drink with the light, delicate flavor you like. Wouldn't a good hot cup taste good right now? Ask for a cup of whipped hot chocolate at our snack bar.
Worth digging for. Trix, the corn cereal with the tangy taste of natural fruit. Fruit colors, too. And as we all know, Trix are for kids.
For Wilkins coffee, you pull this handle.
If I don't want it?
Then I pull this handle. It pays to drink Wilkins.
Here is a world of dynamic magic, as Jonathan Swift's immortal entertainment comes to life in the screen recreation of the book, whose savage commentary on life and society shook the world, while the glorious imagination of its author takes Gulliver from Lilliput, the land of the little people, to Brobdingnag, the land of the giants.
I'm Dr. Lemuel Gulliver. Where am I?
He's alive! He's alive!
The Adventures of Gulliver, and the three worlds that no one man ever traveled before. Only the magic of super dynamation makes this incredible world-famous story come to life, as real people change size before your very eyes.
He's stealing our ship, Kennon!
Yes, super dynamation transports you into a world of wonders. You meet face-to-face the Lilliputian lovers, Gwendolen and Reldresal. For the first time in the history of motion pictures, it has been possible to film the story of the little people of Lilliput who were 6 inches small. And the giants of Brobdingnag, who were 60 feet tall. You will see the lovelorn Elizabeth in the land of the giants.
Where's the bride and groom?
There they are, Teardrop.
Oh, sure you know what you're doing?
Now, none of your foolish jokes.
You will marvel at the fairy tale wedding in the land of the giants.
I pronounce you man and wife by the authority vested in me by me.
Uncle, help us! Help us!
In scenes defying the imagination, you meet this giant child.
Brundlefitch! Here I am!
Whose pigtail becomes a lifeline out of a squirrel's burrow. See Gulliver pitted in mortal combat with a giant alligator. Sail with Gulliver into 1,001 adventures. Real danger, real excitement, real people. All made possible through the miracle of super dynamation.
See, I shared a news piece about adventures in the household and Lilliputians, Gulliver. Thought it was kind of funny. They're saying in the trailer, they mention that Jonathan Swift's great entertainment, or however they referred to it, sort of like you do realize that it is a heavily satirical book. I don't think I've ever seen any sort of adaptation of Gulliver's Travels that addresses that. Now, I got to say, I haven't seen all of them, but to my knowledge, no, they have not. I had to laugh. W. Forge had mentioned talking about that commenter. Sounds like our president follows you. Remember, he got rid of the penny. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. All right. So anyway, tonight's topic, we're not going to talk too long about this, but I have seen that some content creators out there are talking about how, and I know it was very recently that the dungeon tubers were crying about how their videos weren't getting the kind of views that they once did. I see that's been reestablished. So that was a false alarm, I guess, for them. All you had to do is, make videos talking about how you avoided a Kickstarter scam, like umpteen other people have suddenly now made. It'll like get you back on track. So, but I'll tell you what, something I have noticed, and this has been, it's been getting worse the last, I'd say 2 years. In fact, it's at its worst now. Publishers do not bother sharing coverage of stuff that they sent you. I've mentioned this before. Now, there are some that do, and there are some that are really good about it. Off the top of my head, Cobalt Press will on occasion toss in something in their newsletter about something that's been shared, a review, first look, what have you. And I know Pinnacle Entertainment Group did, although they haven't sent me anything in quite some time. Monty Cook Games is pretty good about it. Free League Publishing is fairly solid as far as like resharing a post, but they don't go out of their way to put it on their social media accounts. I'm sure there's Cubicle 7 Games. They're pretty decent about it, but most of them, if they do anything, they will just like do a retweet. They will not actually go, and now, like I said, there are some, I just mentioned some of those companies which will actually say, oh, Jeff at the Gaming Gang says whatever, right? And then they post a link to the video. But many of them will just simply give you a like. And I've talked about this before, that it's sort of like, what sense does that make? If you are a PR person, if you're the marketing person, if you're the social media manager, whatever your title is at a game publisher, your job is to sell product. It is not to get as many likes as you can on a tweet or a post on Facebook or an Instagram post. That's not your job. Your job is to sell product. And it makes absolutely no sense for you to send out review copies to content creators who then turn around, create content about those items, and then you can't be bothered to share that with your audience, who are the people who would want to know about this the most out of anyone. Whoever's already following your accounts on social media is your captive audience for this. But you can't be bothered. I don't know if it's just ineptitude, incompetence, if it's laziness. I have no idea. But it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's almost as if some of these publishers, their PR people, their marketing people, whatever, feel like they're competing with content creators, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. They're not competing with the reviewers and such out there. They're working together. So like I said, it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. And I do think that is one of the reasons why we are seeing, and the gaming gang included, viewer numbers drop. And it's a lot of it, like if I do something for Kobold Press, I can expect solid view numbers on that. And it's got really, in my opinion, I might be wrong, I don't think it really has anything to do with Tales of the Valiant stuff being compatible with Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think that is a big deal. I think part of it is because Kobold Press goes to the effort to say, you know, share stuff. Oh, this reviewer says this about our game. Here's a link to their review, or here's a link to their video. They actually do that. They engage with their audience, where I see more and more publishers. A lot of them are like offloading, they're offboarding their PR to outside PR companies who aren't very good at it either. Who all they're good at doing is hitting people with email blasts constantly, which that's not putting asses in the seats, to put it that way, right? That's not selling product either. That's just shilling stuff. Yeah, but I mean the companies that are using like outside PR, they don't also not being shared with their followers. And it's kind of funny too, because I've noticed, I started looking at this last week, where I'll see a lot of, well, not a lot, but many of the bigger publishers out there. Paizo. I'm going to put Paizo on the spot again, because they're another one that never, ever, they won't even retweet stuff. They won't retweet my Paizo previews. I am the only person that I'm aware of who shares video first looks of the Paizo products that are coming out for the month. And Paizo doesn't do it. And they can't be bothered to repost it. There's one person that they repost every once in a while. Only person I do. And I know some other folks, other content creators hang out and chat sometimes. And they pointed out the same thing. They're like, hey, Jeff, don't feel bad. They won't do it for anybody. I get it. I understand that. I'm not saying, oh, they're picking on me. I'm saying they're screwing the pooch, basically. Because if they did share content creators with their reviews and stuff, then maybe they'd sell more product. Anyway, but so I think that is a big reason why some of the smaller content creators, and yeah, I'm not a big content creator. I mean, I create a lot of content. I have almost 17,000 subscribers, but those 17,000 subscribers don't see these videos that go out. Because I see the analytics. I check the analytics. So, but I don't know. I don't know. I think also part of it is that there's just too much of this out there now. So you're swimming in a very, very big pond filled with a lot of people who aren't really bringing much to the table. I'm sorry, I got to say that. I got to say that from time to time, every once in a while, I'll check out some outlet that's popped up and it's something that shows up in my feed. And it's like, wow, this is 3 weeks ago and it's got 115,000 views. I've never heard of this person. I'll check it out and it's like the same old bullshit. It's like, man, first of all, you can tell they're reading off a script, and that's not a big deal. I mean, most people know I don't script anything. Yeah, sometimes I suffer for that, but still. But it's like, oh man, this is so Chat GPT produced as far as the stuff they're reading. It's like, seriously? It's like, oh, it's an 8-minute video about NPCs. And you're like, I have learned nothing. I learned nothing from that video. Once again, I'm not picking on people. I'm not going to be like, oh, this person. But I'm just saying there's a lot of crap out there. Well, I mean, it's the internet now. So that's what it is. It's what are we calling it now? The inshitification of the internet, which is very true. It's like, it's like everything's produced for the lowest common denominator out there. It's like, okay. It's like, all righty. But yeah, it can be disheartening. It really can. I'm not going anywhere, just so you know. But yeah, it's just really weird. And I will check other stuff out. And it's kind of like, for the most part, if you're not just cranking out the D&D shit, and I mean, I don't have any problem with Dungeons and Dragons. I don't have an issue with Wizards of the Coast. You enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, it's great. I share coverage when I can of Wizards of the Coast stuff. But this is not a D&D channel, never has been, never will be. But it's almost like if that's not, it's funny because within 2 months, it's gone from D&D is the kiss of death. The dungeon tubers are, we're all dying out here. And then 2 months later, it's, well, if you're not cranking out D&D stuff, you're not gonna get your videos in front of people. So Chris Leonard says they wonder if it's arrogance on their part or they hire people who don't understand social media. I will tell you that from my experience, and I'm not going to name companies, but there have been companies that I do know for a fact hired their marketing person, PR person, whatever, who had zero experience, that they got hired on as like a favor to a family member, or they are a family member of like an owner or investor. Somebody felt sorry for them and they got hired on board, and the companies have suffered for it. Because something else you want to keep in mind, and I guess we're turning this into a diatribe against most tabletop gaming PR or marketing. Now, not everyone's like this. Cobalt Press is great. Send me, I get news from them all the time. Whenever they got something coming out, I know about it. 9 times out of 10. But see, that's also something that I've noticed too, is that we're seeing that even getting news releases out is kind of a lost art for some companies. So it's either get inundated with emails constantly, like Goodman Games does, with whenever they're crowdfunding something, you're going to get hit with multiple emails, usually every day. So we'll see that. There are other companies out there that do that, because now there's this mindset that, keep hitting up your mailing list multiple times a day, because that's going to get them to back your project. I don't know. Maybe that's how other people operate, but you do that to me, I'm like, leave me the fuck alone. I know about your Kickstarter. I don't need to be reminded every 4 hours about it. But want to back it, I can back it. W4 says, always taking the high ground, chef. Name the names. All right. Tell you what, I will name a company. I have not shared coverage from them in a long time. And they're, what is he? I don't even know his name off the top of my head. So, AEG. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now people are going to get mad. Like, Jeff, you spilled the beans. So, those of you who follow the Gaming Gang and have for a while, for at least 5 years, right? AEG and the Gaming Gang were really tight for a long, long time. And that was when Todd Rowland was their marketing guy, PR guy, press guy, whatever. I think it was marketing was his title. Always got news from them, sent review copies to us. And it's not even necessarily the review copies. It's just the news, right? Because the news website has been since the beginning, since we rolled out in 2010, September 1st of 2010, we've always shared news articles. So they were always fantastic, shoot news out. And once again, we would get review copies of stuff. And then Todd got moved up and another person came in and things were like, yeah, they were okay. They were all right. And then they moved on and I don't recall this person's name. Not, to be honest, I wouldn't really point them out anyway. But they came on board and it was right down the toilet. Hardly ever got any updates about news items. Very few press releases would come out. And it was, I have no idea what this person's qualifications were or whatever. And, I've met John Zinzer from AEG a few times and interviewed him. I think it's twice. I know at least once. I know I interviewed him one time at Origins. They weren't even exhibiting there. It was just hanging out. And we did the interview. I want to say it was in the bar area. But anyway, so all of a sudden it was like, had dried up. Never heard anything. Didn't get press releases. Didn't see any sort of review copies come my way. And then, so I started, they had introduced themselves in an email. So I had started reaching out and I was like, hey, what's going on here? So W4 says, Alderac Entertainment Group just focuses on board games now. Yeah, they have for years now. Do they still own Legend of the Five Rings? No, that's through Asmodee. In fact, what is it? Edge Studio? It was Fantasy Flight Games, and then all the RPGs that were with Fantasy Flight Games went to Edge Studio out of Spain, I believe they are. But 245 Trioxin has joined us. So anyway, so it was, never heard anything. And then all of a sudden, like, I started to notice that AEG's games were just kind of meh. They had a lot of stuff from John D. Clare, which were fine. I mean, there were some titles that did really well for them. But then they were releasing other stuff where it was sort of like, it kind of reminded me of Stronghold Games. And there was a point, and I'm friends with Stephen Bonacore, and so he knows this. I had told him this before, that, Stronghold Games would come out with something that was a pretty hot game, Terraforming Mars, right? That's their evergreen. That will keep them around. That has kept Stronghold Games around. But then there would be other games that Steven liked that they published, a lot of abstract stuff that nobody bought. So you would go to online retailers and that you would see in their liquidation areas a bunch of Stronghold Game stuff. And it was usually these abstract games. And it was like, geez, there was a Z-Man Games used to do that stuff too. I don't even know if Z-Man Games is around anymore. Z-Man Games would come out with, one or two like really good games and then a lot of just meh stuff. And that's kind of what AEG was starting to do. And then just recently, I think he was their COO. Like I said, I don't recall their name, but there's somebody whose name I had heard in the industry. I guess they stated publicly that AI could easily make board games just as good as what's being created by designers. Just as good, if not better, that really the board game industry, in words to the effect of, really didn't need designers. Obviously, someone who's probably never designed a game. I don't know for certain, but still, like I said, I don't follow like a lot of board game stuff. I don't follow a lot of controversy, period. I have better shit to do with my time. But yeah, I did see that. And then John Zinsser let him go. Because yeah, if you're a company that is probably barely hanging on at this point, because what do they got? Thunderstone, I guess would be their evergreen now. But I mean, you'll notice if you go back, you'll see some of the like last of the AEG reviews were kind of like, meh. Like, what was it? Cubitos? It was like this racing game, and it was like racing boxes, and it was like, okay. I'm not necessarily understanding that. But yeah, if you're a board game company and you're kind of barely hanging on, you're going to get rid of somebody who sits there and talks about how the industry really doesn't need to have designers. W. Ford says Z-Man Games is probably still around due to Carcassonne. Well, Carcassonne wasn't originally their game. It was, I think it was Mayfair here in the U.S. I know it's a Hans im Glück game out of Germany. I think it's Pandemic that would be keeping Z-Man Games around. And when they did Pandemic Legacy and stuff like that. And I know Zev isn't, well, last I heard, he wasn't with Z-Man Games anymore. So he had sold the company as far as I knew. Anyway, but so it basically got to the point where AEG went from being a company that we could rely upon to get news from constantly and stuff that we wanted to share with our audience. Legend of the Five Rings, as far as the card game, the role-playing game, which I thought was really, really cool. I can't tell you what it's like once it left and went to Fantasy Flight, because that was another company we never got on board with. We never got on board with FFG. And we interviewed their marketing guy every Gen Con. He knew us. He knew us on site. He'd come up and talk to us and say hello to us, Elliot and I, you know. And so Kevin R. Smith says, as I thought, Ryan Dancy, that's the guy, is the AI offender. He invented the open game license, but these days he mostly says controversial things on social media. Well, he was like I said, I think he was the chief operating officer. W. Ford says Mayfair Games is still around. Mayfair Games just came back. Mayfair Games came back within, this is just a few months ago, with new ownership. So they are not the same game publisher. Mayfair Games had been out of business for quite some time. In fact, it was funny. If you've ever been to Gen Con, if you went to Gen Con a few years back, Mayfair was always one of the sponsors, and they would always have a van that they would serve coffee from in the morning. They always gave out Gen Con pins for Mayfair. Every year was a new pin. So I always stopped by and got a new pin. And then they were out there at one Gen Con. And then that September, after Gen Con, they announced they were closing shop. I think it was mainly because their owner was, I believe he was an elderly gentleman who was just sort of like, yeah, okay. I'm wrapping this up. So we've seen that from companies that, Mayfair, I don't think Mayfair was in huge financial trouble because they did have some pretty solid evergreen titles out there. But yes, they were another board game company that they would release something really good. And then for every one really good game, there'd be like 5 meh. W. Ford says it's like how FASA returned. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that it's, I don't know what games Mayfair has. I don't think that they are actually publishing anything yet. I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't really follow the board game stuff as much as I once did. Just once again, it's another thing where there's just so many outlets out there. But let's see what else has been going on in chat. Who's popped in? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I did say hello to 245 Trioxin. Roll for Combat is pretty aggressive with emails. That's where everybody's picked this up from what I've heard. Through the grapevine, through the back channels. I'll say back channels because that's more accurate. That a lot of these companies, like Goodman Games, and I have seen others as well, that they're crowdfunding. Now they hit you up multiple times a day with their emails. And that's kind of like, yeah, okay. Yeah. I know and I like Goodman Games, right? I got nothing against Goodman Games. I like Goodman Games. In fact, we have folks who like Goodman Games so much, who enjoy this channel, that they have arranged for me to review stuff from Goodman Games. That they have provided the funds for me to pick stuff up so I could share coverage with you, which I've got some on the horizon as well. But some discussion of FASA being a shadow of its former self. I would think so. I would think it would be. There you go. So Steven from Roll for Combat's with us, says, we do it because it works. I get it. I understand. I understand it. But as I said, now, if Steven just tuned in, he may have missed. I wasn't saying stuff about Roll for Combat. I was talking about Goodman Games and getting hit up with all of these emails about their Kickstarters or crowdfunding projects. Because I think now they're a game found company or a backer kit company. But, and I'm sure Steven will admit this himself, these companies have picked up on Roll for Combat's Kickstarter strategies and duplicated that. So there you go. Anyway, here's Ludwig right under Steven says, I had to block Roll for Combat. Hey, I'll tell you what's kind of ticking me off recently. All of a sudden, I am getting these emails from Backer Kit about crowdfunding stuff, about projects. And it's like, okay, so number one, I have never signed up with, I'm almost positive I have never supported something through Backer Kit unless it was what the hell is it? I'm trying to, OVA. I can't remember what it stands for. It's the Ultraviolet Grasslands sequel that is so delayed. I think that may have been through Backer Kit, but I never signed up for Backer Kit to notify me about like crowdfunding projects. And then within the last 2 weeks, I'm suddenly inundated with emails from Backer Kit about stuff. And it's not all gaming stuff. And I have to sit there and click on the unsubscribe. And the thing is, it doesn't unsubscribe you from Backer Kit. It just unsubscribes you from the project. That's like, you. W4 says they're getting nostalgic now. Kevin R. Smith says they're not sure what happened in between, but they know the founder of FGU revived the company name just to squeeze more from designers trying to revive their games. Isn't FGU back? Mark Hawkswell says, I've definitely lost interest in backing the Goodman Games Kickstarters. So many emails that I don't even look at them anymore. That, and they seem to be a tad pricier. See what Steven started? Hey, you guys know, I tell you what I think. Steven knows this. I say what's on my mind. Christopher Lundgren says, same thing with Backer Kit. They're getting new $150 set finally coming, but they never ask for emails. Same with Roll for Combat as well. All right, Christopher, Stephen, if you want to have it out here in chat, we'll kick back and I'll narrate if you want. Joking. Anywho, but yeah, so anyway, I guess the original topic was why some non-D&D content creators are feeling like they're getting shellacked on YouTube. And I think it's just, the reality is, I think it's a lot of different things going on. Like I said, I think the marketing from a lot of publishers leaves a ton to be desired because they are social media people who know about social media from the average user's point of view, as opposed to how do you use social media to actually sell product, as opposed to every post coming from that publisher on social media is just another advertisement of some sort. I'll tell you who does well with their social media is any company that creates a sense of community with their social media, as opposed to just, oh, well, here's this other thing that we've got for sale. And the next day, hey, we got this for sale too. Check this out. And look at this. This is on sale and this is coming soon. Far too many publishers out there utilize social media like that. And that's why these days you don't see role-playing game companies or board game companies really either, outside of, say, like Wizards of the Coast. You don't necessarily see a bunch of posts, tweets, whatever, that get tons of likes. I mean, you see hundreds of likes on an Instagram post from a game company or a tweet or whatever we call it now, a zeet. You've been X'd. Very rarely do you see that. Chris Lundgren says, Haunted, I did the same. I like their MCC game, but not interested in spam. Professor DM commented on this issue. Yeah, but I think his take was aimed more for the dungeon tubers. And like I said, and maybe Steven, if he's still hanging around, if Christopher hasn't chased him away. I think that's turned around. Because I was talking about this earlier, like 2 months ago, you had loads of people. Well, okay, not loads. You had dungeon tubers. We're talking about, hey, man, we're getting killed. Getting killed on our views. Look at our views. And there you go. Steven says, I'm here. And then it turned around. I don't think that they're experiencing that same problem any longer. Part of the problem is if you don't want to game the system, you have a problem. And we talked about this with the big deal about Rodney Smith and the guy that he had partnered with his company. Now, off the top of my head, I don't remember the name of it. But it came out, and I guess Rodney was the one who ratted this guy out, where he paid for subscribers. He paid for views. And we've talked about this before, where you'll see outlets come out of nowhere who suddenly have massive numbers of subscribers, massive numbers of views. And I had pointed out before, this is long before this came out. And if you follow the Gaming Gang and you watch live, probably encountered me talking about this at least once, where you had people who were advertising, who were sitting there seeing, look at all these subscribers, look at all these views. I want to get my product in front of this person's audience, not realizing that of those 20,000 views, 19,000 of them were not organic, and they were already gone 10 seconds into the video. Chris Lundgren's carrying on about Dungeons and Dragons. The dungeon dudes, I don't even know them. Do you know? Once again, I don't really have time. I don't have time to watch Steven's Roll for Combat stuff. I'm working on stuff in the afternoon, and then I'll see, oh, hey, Steven's streaming. So I usually know what Steven's topic was. In fact, I think he was streaming today or yesterday. But I don't even have time to watch people I'm friends with. I don't have time to watch their stuff. So I don't, like I said, I don't know who the Dungeon Dudes are, but Daryl Irrit says, yeah, but all their published products are new, not new, Dungeons and Dragons based. So that would make sense. So yes, Steven says they were streaming today. Thought it was today. Something about Dungeons and Dragons 3 years later, and we've won. I think that was the title of it. Kevin R. Smith says, of course, the Dungeon Dudes are converting Dungeons of Drakkenheim to Daggerheart. So there's that. See, once again, and I'm not talking about, well, hey, this is a anti-D&D screed. No, not at all. I try to tell people this all the time, and funny enough, I think it irritates some people out there for absolutely no reason, but it's completely up to you what you want to play. I never tell you you're having wrong fun based on what you play. I won't tell you you're having wrong fun if you're doing weird oddball stuff that I would find pretty creepy personally at your table, because that's your table. Yeah, there are not a ton of ways for you to really enjoy yourself in this life. So, whatever you play, whatever you enjoy, it's all good. Don't let anybody dissuade you from that. May not necessarily be my cup of tea, but still. Yeah, like I said, I think the new D&D's fine. It probably would not be my go-to if I were going to do fantasy role-playing. Although I've kind of, been finagled into running some on, Foundry. But, we talked about this before with, game masters out there. It's, there's stuff that a game master wants to run. And if you have a group of players and you can't get them on board with what you want to run, you're stuck running whatever it is they want. So, Chris Lundgren says, lawn darts and hand grenades. So, anyway, Pete Stracklich says, I love the Dungeon Dudes, but then they admitted to be dice fudgers. Jeez, I had to part ways. I haven't been the same since. Well, I don't know what to tell you, Pete Stracklich. But if you're a game master and you're looking to have a good time, and it's one thing if you're sitting there and you're running, say, like a Call of Cthulhu adventure. And it's another thing if you're running like an OSR game where it's just a hex crawl and there's really no like through line. There's really no story. It's just, emergent play where it's like, okay, well, this is what's here. This is what's going on. However your players, tackle this is going to be. So Pete Stracklich says, don't say it, Jeff. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying I could see there being a difference with game masters who, okay, well, I rolled the die and I don't like the results of that. It doesn't make sense for the story to continue with that die roll. And then other games where it's like, well, there is no story unless we do base everything off of what the dice say. So, I mean, like I said, I get it. I get it. Anyway. So, Once again, it's just a game master thing. All right, so we're gonna wrap up because amazingly enough, this episode has gone almost an hour and a half. Yeah, just shooting the shit. It's usually what we do. Chris Leonard says, I have never fudged rolls. It's an integrity thing. If my players can't trust me with dice. Just had a first-time player died in zombies, and they gave him a death certificate. I think a lot of that has to do the fudging of rolls. I think a lot of that also has to do with what the game master is looking to get out of the experience as well. So, I mean, I am not going to knock people for ignoring a die roll here and there. And then I'm not going to, say, well, you're being a little anal. If it's the die, but the die says this. I think it's fine line. Probably a very fine line. All righty, then. That's it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, bigger thank you for you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm going through the news of the night. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, be sure to ring that bell. And if you ring the bell, don't forget, mark all notifications, because that way you'll not only know when every episode of The Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. You'll also find out when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Pendragon, the Savage King from Chaosium Inc. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube, such as Sammy's reviews. She just reviewed the remastered edition of Dark Archive for Pathfinder. In fact, she provides most of the reviews for our Pathfinder and Starfinder releases that we get a peek at. So there is that. Should mention, tune in tomorrow. I am going to talk about a contest. If you enjoy, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a hint. I got to reach on over and get this. J.D. Sewell and Richard Harris were with us tonight. Thank you very much for chiming in at the end so I can say hello to you as I say goodbye to you. But if you have any interest in the Pirate Borg starter set, which I recently shared a first look video of, you might want to tune in tomorrow. I'm just saying. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.